What I have to talk about today is regarding Governor Little and what he did that has made this situation extra dire. So I'm going to carry on in the name of baby Cyrus and his family because I want you all to know what Governor Little has done in the name of the state of emergency and in the name of COVID. And we must know what the governor has done to Idaho. An emergency declaration is limited to 60 days. That's according to Idaho law, which we'll go through in a minute. Idaho's emergency declaration is now 734 days old. This is King Little. Our Idaho government is out of balance. Emergency declarations allow the governor to suspend rules, remember that, but not laws, and laws are also often referred to as Idaho Code. Article 2 of the Idaho Constitution is very clear about the separation of powers, and yet we continue to operate under the emergency from its first declaration, March 13th, 2020. The COVID-19 emergency declaration timeline, let's go through it really quickly. On March 13th, Governor Little declares a state of emergency and the clock starts ticking on the 30 days. March 18th, Little writes a new temporary rule to restrict pharmacists from dispensing hydrochloroquine for off-label use. How did he actually get ahead of the narrative on that, as did so many other governors? March 23rd, by proclamation, governor suspends 125 plus rules. Hundreds of rules are suspended, but most concerning are parents' rights when children are taken into state custody. No visitation, no notice of transfer of children, changes to facility requirements where children are housed in state custody regarding the number of bathrooms, and 9 COVID, and at this point, we had 9 COVID hospitalizations in Idaho out of 1,118 hospital beds, representing a mere 0.5 utilization rate of hospital beds. Does that seem like we were in a state of emergency? Here he is declaring a state of emergency when we have 9 people in the hospital because of COVID. March 25th, the governor declares an extreme state of emergency, and that restarts the clock. The state of emergency, extreme state of emergency on March 25th, invoking code 46-4601. This is the martial law code. Governor Brad Little used his emergency powers to suspend Idaho laws to protect our children. Let's go through these. And this is why. This is why even what's going on with Marissa and family and Cyrus is because he suspended these rules under the state of emergency. I've been shouting about this for 2 years, but Facebook and social media won't let me get out, so I have to have every opportunity to get a microphone to tell parents the dire situation we are in. Under the state of emergency, because of COVID, they suspended the right to visit your child should CPS take your child. Under the state of emergency, Governor Little suspended the notification of placement, so you don't get to know where your child goes should CPS take your child. Under the state of emergency, because of COVID, there's a notification of change in visitation you don't get to know. You don't get to see your child in person. You don't have the right to even participate in the appeal. Does it make sense that these rules are suspended in the name of COVID? And this happened when we have 9 people in hospital beds? This is about tyranny and control. It is not about COVID. So now on April 24th, 2020, Little extends the emergency declarations and waives more regulations. More accurately, he changes election law using the COVID-19 emergency. Remember, he's not allowed to change the law under the state of emergency, but he did it anyway. And who's holding him accountable? Not the AG. The governor writes rules to restrict effective treatments for COVID, then calls a special session to establish immunity from civil liability, which we, again, the people said no. They were trying to give immunity to businesses so that they could then require the businesses to require the vaccines, and you would have to have it to go in, and nobody would have any liability for it. On March 18th, the governor had the State Board of Pharmacy meet for a special session. At the governor's request, hydrochloroquine was restricted before it even became controversial. On March 26th, the Idaho State Board of Pharmacy also restricted azithromycin using the same wording. How in the world is our governor practicing medicine without a license? And again, where is our AG? doing nothing except for word salading the law and telling the governor he can keep us in an unlawful state of emergency. That's what he's doing. Then he said on April 23rd, we're not going to return to normal until we have a vaccine. Did you hear him say that? I heard him say that, and I was like, there it is. He's a pharma shill. Over the course of 2 years, legislators failed in their numerous attempts to rein in the governor's emergency status. Idaho legislatures' actions threaten a vaccine rollout and Idaho's prosperity. That's what he said. That was his press conference. Because we wanted to end the state of emergency. And he said, oh, we can't end the state of emergency. That's going to stop our funding. Do you all care if the federal funding stops when it comes to the vaccine rollout? Let's go ahead and stop that. Not Governor Little. He wants that money. I've been calling it Governor Little's spending emergency. Idaho's state of emergency allowed the governor to accept $257 million in FEMA funds and $1.25 billion from the federal government CARES Act. You know there's strings attached to that, right? Pages and pages and pages of strings. And suspending the rules that he suspended goes hand in hand with those strings. Governor Little misused his executive power. He has violated the 1st, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 14th constitutional amendments. He shut down our churches. Our people are not secure in their person. He's deprived people of liberty. He's withheld public trials, speedy trials. He just put trials on pause. Completely unconstitutional, and then they just do it willy-nilly whenever they feel like it. So they keep the state of emergency going. And February 6th or 7th, it ended. And then there was this announcement that it was going to end on April 15th. And I was confused because there was no continuation. And when I went to the website, if you look at the bottom where it says page not found, I went to the website, which is on the COVID site, on our government site, to see what is the continuation, because every 30 days he continues it unlawfully. And it wasn't there. The whole tab was gone. So I couldn't even see if there was a new proclamation. What is extending it from February 6th or 7th to April 15th? It's completely gone. And then when we call the number on there, they say, oh, well, because he's removing it April 15th, we just removed it from the website. Oh, okay, so we no longer need to see, no longer have public eyes on what's going on in our government, and we no longer need to see the one that's current? Governor Little announced on Tuesday, March 8th, okay, public health disaster emergency declaration to end April 15th. Okay, so it goes to March, yes. I mean, this guy, he's hiding from public view because he doesn't want you to see, because elections are coming up. Did you all see his statement where he was talking about what a great governor he is, and he never locked us down, and he never put us in masks, and he fought the vaccine federally and all that garbage? Well, let's talk about facts. If Governor Little never shut down Idaho, then why did he create the guidelines to open up Idaho? Right? Fact, Governor Little ordered a statewide shutdown, classified businesses as essential and non-essential. Can I ask you, please, anybody in this room, did he declare non-essential? If he declared you non-essential, will you stand up? Who else was declared non-essential? Yep. Who else was non-essential? You didn't get to work because you were non-essential. You had to stay home. I guarantee you all of these people felt that their paycheck was essential. Feeding their families was essential. Paying their mortgage was essential. Who is he to tell us who is essential and who is not essential? And then he shut down our churches, our constitutional right to our churches. Now here's what he said. Here's what it says on his order to self-isolate, which he says he didn't do. Read this order carefully. It says, violation or failure to comply with this order could constitute a misdemeanor punishable by fine, imprisonment, or both. Does that sound like he kept Idaho open? What a liar. Governor Brad Little announced on March 8th that Idaho will end the public state of emergency April 15th. Oh, great. He's implying as governor that he protected Idaho citizens from the vaccine mandates. No, he didn't. He did not. And then we look at this right there. See, right there from the government website? Mandatory mask orders now in effect for all of Ada County. He never masked us? He's lying. And he's bold-faced lying, and he knows his media is in cahoots and will lie for him. Here's another fact. The capital city had both mask mandates and vaccine passport requirements. I couldn't go to the farmer's market in downtown Boise because they had the vaccine requirement. So tell me again, Governor Little, that you fought the mask mandate and the vaccine mandate. This is happening in our state, right here. The red counties are mask mandate in our state. Fact, thousands of employees are affected by vaccine mandates across the state. Even Ammon Bundy was down there at St. Luke's. Governor Brad Little announced on March 8th, only the governor can lawfully end the emergency declaration. Sound tyrannical to you? I was accused of misusing that word at the beginning of this whole thing. Let's see. Idaho State, the statute itself says, the legislature by concurrent resolution may terminate a state of disaster emergency at any time. That's Idaho Code 46-1008. And guess what? Representative Heather Scott had a bill to end the state of emergency that passed the House and was headed to the Senate. And the day that it passed the House, Governor Little made this statement that he was going to end the state of emergency on April 15th. He didn't want the Senate swamp to hear that bill. He was protecting them from hearing that bill so that we can't see how they vote on it, so that we can't hold them accountable when it's time to go vote. Remember the 9? Remember the 9 that were in the hospital when he declared a state of emergency? Right now, there's 437,931 statewide cases, and now he's going to remove the state of emergency? Does that make any sense to you? He's a liar. And he's stealing your freedom. And I read his statement today saying that, oh, this is out of the governor's control about babies being removed and CPS and health and welfare. The Health and Welfare Department is under the executive branch. That's his branch. He appointed the director. Do not believe him when he says he can't do anything. He's a liar. Oh, this lie. I successfully challenged Biden's overreaching vaccine mandates in court. What a joke. Let's read the law. We have Idaho Health Freedom Act 39-9003, and guess what? Raul Labrador, who sits on the Central District Health Board, who is running for AG, helped draft this law years ago ahead of time. He co-authored that. And what it says is every person within the state of Idaho is and shall be free to choose or decline any mode of securing healthcare services without penalty or threat of penalty by the federal government of the United States of America. Could that be any more clear? That's clear. But they frightened everyone and said, oh my goodness, what are we going to do about Biden wanting to force vaccines? We were already protected. So he fear-mongered the people of Idaho so that he could pretend like he had the solution when we had protection all along, because he's a liar.